What if a tiny flea on a rat changed the course of Europe for centuries? In just a few years, half a continent's way of life was gone, and a new world was born. In the summer of 1347, ships from the Black Sea docked in Sicily, carrying more than exotic goods. They carried death. The bacterium bubonic plague, later known as the Black Death, spread like wildfire. Entire villages vanished. Thomas estimates between 30% to 60% of Europe's population died in those few years. But the real shock wasn't just the death toll, it was what came next. How the plague spread and why it was so deadly. The disease came in multiple terrifying forms. Bubonic via fleas and rats. Then pneumonic that could pass person to person, and the lethal septicemic form with blood poisoning. Though medieval people didn't know bacteria, the logic was simple. Crowded cities, filthy streets, rats everywhere. The plague exploited trade networks, ports, and human connectivity. What's hidden beneath the horror is how this catastrophe unlocked a transformation. Demographic collapse and immediate shock. When you lose a third or more of your people, you lose more than just lives. You lose labor, tradition, and social order. Farming fields went untended. Towns became ghost towns. The economies of entire regions collapsed. And when labor disappears, the powerful suddenly find themselves exposed. Labor shortages and rising wages. With so many workers gone, those who remained found themselves in demand. Wages soared. Serfs and peasants who were once locked to the land began to leave and seek towns or better offers. This sudden shift threatened the entire feudal structure. The system that held Europe together for centuries was cracking, and few saw it coming. The decline of feudalism. Feudalism relied on fixed labor and social hierarchies, but with labor scarce, lords had to offer favorable terms, or lose their estates. Serfs negotiated, migrated, or revolted. The labor bargains helped drive the decline of serfdom. One of the hidden outcomes, a rise in social mobility. Ordinary people for the first time had real choices. Agricultural and economic change. The plague forced landowners to rethink land use. Ridley fields once heavily tilled were abandoned or switched over to sheep farming, less labor-intensive. The economic map of Europe changed. The very food on your table changed because of fleas on rats from a ship in Sicily. Religious and cultural shock. The church, long the pillar of medieval life, was shaken. Priests died, people felt abandoned, and the idea of the church's uncontested power began to fade. Many interpreted the plague as divine punishment. Others blamed institutional failure. In the chaos, culture itself changed. Dark themes, danse macabre, new art, and questioning of old certainties. Public health and urban development. Though medical knowledge was primitive, the Black Death compelled rudimentary public health responses. Quarantines. The word comes from quaranta equals 40 days in Italy. City officials, sanitation policies. These laid early foundations for modern public health. The plague was one of the first times cities formally fought contagion, not just war. Hidden detail, trade, globalization, and biological warfare. Here, as a lesser-known twist, the plague's spread was boosted by the expanding trade network across Asia, the Black Sea, and the Mediterranean. Some historians even link it to the siege of Kaffa 1346, where plague-infested corpses may have been thrown into the city on early form of biological warfare. Did war and trade conspire with fleas and rats to rewrite Europe? Urban growth, middle-class rise in towns. As peasants left the land and moved to towns for better pay, cities began to rebound. The surviving workers had more disposable income. New opportunities arose. The idea of a middle class began to form. A pandemic meant to destroy society actually built parts of the modern one. Intellectual awakening in the Renaissance. The trauma of the plague also shook intellectual life. People questioned tradition. Humanism took root. The focus shifted to the individual, to life here and now, not just the afterlife. Some historians see the Black Death as a trigger for the early Renaissance. When so many died, those remaining asked, what's the point of tradition? What's the point of church? What's the point of waiting for heaven? Political consequences and revolts. The pressure culminated in political unrest. Peasants' revolts like the English Peasants' Revolt of 1381 exploded. Nobles and monarchs had to adjust. The state grew stronger, feudal lords weaker. A disease sparked revolts. Who knew? Hidden detail, wealth, redistribution, and environmental impact. With fewer heirs, fewer workers, land ownership became meaningfully different. Wealth and land redistributed. Also, some marginal lands were abandoned and forests regrew. Europe's environment changed too. The plague didn't just change people, it changed the land. Long-term legacy, modern Europe. The Europe that emerged was very different, less rigid, more mobile, more open to change. A more wage-based economy, stronger cities, diminished serfdom. The legacy of the Black Death echoes even today. When you think about modern Europe, its cities, its wages, its freedoms, part of it traces back to rat fleas in 1347. Myth-busting and surprising facts. Not every place was equally hit. Poland and Bohemia are said to have been relatively spared. The word quarantine originates from the 40-day isolation used in Venice. Some lords tried to freeze wages, e.g., England's Statute of Labourers 1351, but the market had other ideas. Even amid chaos, people still tried to cling to old rules. But the rules were breaking. Personal story, case study. Here's a small vignette. A peasant in England, freed from serfdom by dint of labor shortage, moves to a town, becomes a craftsman, opens his own workshop. His children earn more than his lord ever did. That personal shift echoes millions of times across Europe. That one unnamed peasant, he helped build the European middle class. The emotional and cultural impact. Death was no longer far away. Art became obsessed with mortality. The Danse Macabre cartoons, the skeletons leading every person, rich or poor, to their grave. Literature became darker. People asked existential questions. What is life worth? What matters? The pandemic's shadow stretched into art, music, poetry, and our modern sense of mortality. The impact on medicine and science. Though medieval medicine failed, the plague pushed future thinkers toward better hygiene, public health, even the idea of contagion. Over centuries, this would become the foundation of modern epidemiology. Funny to think a mass death gave birth to public health. What does the Black Death mean for us today? In an age of pandemics, when microbes still threaten, the lessons of 1347 to 51 echo. Social inequality, labor value, public healthies weren't invented in the 21st century. They were hammered out by tragedy centuries ago. The next time you wash your hands or buy a service because someone needed you, thanked ancient fleas. The Black Death was more than a plague. It was a turning point, a reset button pressed across Europe. What emerged was a changed world, less rigid, more mobile, more modern. If you enjoyed this dive into history, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell for more stories that changed everything. History isn't just past, it's why we are here.